All right. Had a little bit of technical difficulty. Didn't know if I'd be able to do this or not. I'm still trying to figure out streaming on YouTube. Fantastic. We're just going to wait for people to show up. It's kind of hard to see the screen from back here. Alright, so while we wait, I'm not really sure what to do. Like I said, I'm very new to this. I've only done one Q&A before, and someone else set it up that time. So this is going to be a learning process for everyone involved. But welcome to those who I can see. I have a weird setup with my laptop and a different camera because the camera on my laptop isn't really functioning. So it's kind of hard to see the screen. But I see we have Megan here. Hello, Megan. I'm glad you can make it. I will start by saying I really wanted to do more events with the release of this book. I was really excited for it, which you wouldn't know if you saw how this book, The Alexander Proposal, was handled compared to The Devil's Maverick because of the pandemic. I mean, it came out it was in the process during the height of the pandemic. So when it came out, I was like, I don't really want to host an event or anything. I don't want to have people showing up to something. My brain's not functioning right now. Basically, this is my event for The Alexander Proposal. This is not at all like the launch I wanted, but I still wanted to do something because this is going to be a very important book in the grand scheme of things. And I think it'll be fun getting to talk about it with people, and because there's so much that happens with a book behind the scenes that no one ever really sees. And I love watching other authors do Q&As because I love finding out those little hidden secrets. Let's see. Pardon me. I'm going to be looking around my camera. Looks like Nally Gonzalez is here. Hi, Nally. She is so amazing. She's an author. She writes new adult, and I actually read her book, Like My Mother Before Me, and it was not at all my normal genre, but I really, really enjoyed it. So you guys should probably check her out. She's pretty great. All right. So I think it's been long enough. I'm just going to get started. So hi, everyone. My name is Lori Fair, and I write adult romance. Sorry. I do have a little bit of camera anxiety, which I'm working on. So today we are doing a Q&A for The Alexander Proposal, my latest book. It is the first book in the Unexpected Merger series, which is going to be a total of 3 books. And this is the first one. You can get a copy on Amazon or on the Totally Bound website. And yeah, we're just going to be chatting for about an hour, just in general, about the story behind it, the characters, pretty much anything. And let's start off with letting me know in the comments if you've read the book or not. Because there will probably be spoilers ahead if you haven't read it. But I will get on with reading the blurbs, that way you guys have an idea if you haven't read it on what it's about. So Jade Saunders grew up with a singular desire to take over her father's company and continue his legacy. But all those dreams are thrown out of the window when her father decides to sell to his old friend, founder and CEO of Alexander International, with a deal that will secure the Saunders family financially. But their current CEO and once friend to Jade has one jaw-dropping condition. Spencer Alexander is everything a well-groomed businessman should be, and his father is ready to retire and hand the reins over to the next generation. First, though, Spencer has to get married. Jade Saunders seems like a perfect match, and they used to be good friends. In Spencer's mind, it's well worth the risk to try and smooth things out with Jade. But when a mistake from Spencer's past begins to threaten all they've worked for, Jade and Spencer have to wonder if they will be able to create a new dream together, or will it all come crashing down around them. In case you couldn't tell, it is contemporary billionaire romance. Unlike The Devil's Maverick, it is pretty clean, where The Devil's Maverick was erotic romance. This one has fade to black scenes, and it's just something a little more for everyone, I guess. So we see that. Hold on, I have to maneuver around the camera. So we see that Megan has read it, and Nally has read it, and she likes the fan art behind me. My friend Vexy Fate actually drew that. It's Jade and Spencer's wedding portrait. Let me see if I can get it down and maybe you can see a little better, because I know the glare is pretty bad. Glare is still pretty bad, but you can see it a little better now. I have these bookmarks here because I didn't really know where else to put them. These were the standard ones I gave away, and then these were for ARC readers specifically. But I think she did a really good job, especially on Spencer. He looks a lot like the cover art, and Jade looks exactly how I imagined her. So I was pretty, I will admit to crying a little bit when I first got it, because it was just so on brand, so perfect. But she's talented like that. In case you couldn't tell, I'm a little nervous. So I guess now we will just jump straight into questions. Questions were sent through social media. A few were sent to me directly. And I'm open to comments and questions throughout. Once I get through the list that I have here, I'll be looking to the comments to see if there's any more that come up during the stream. So the first question is, what kind of research did you do for the Alexander proposal? I actually ended up doing a lot of research because I usually write historical romance, and I've done enough research of that over my lifetime that I don't have to do much except for whenever I'm focusing on a certain period. Whereas with this, it was something entirely new that I was writing. I had to look into the lifestyles of billionaires, how companies worked. I even had to look extremely into New York City voting law, which is not something I was expecting to do. And fun fact, I still get ads on YouTube for yachts and private jets because of the things I was looking up. And so I'm still getting ads for those, and that's fun. The second question is, how do you pick names for your characters? It's a question I get asked often, but in reality, I'm not too good at it. Most of the time, if I hear a name and like it, I'll write it down, and I just keep a running list of names that sound good to me. But it's very rare for me to think of a character and already have a name for them. And usually I will just get a list of names I like and ask my friends and beta readers, like, hey, for this type of person, how does this name sound? For Jade, I based her name on her eye color because I knew I wanted her to have these beautiful, like, sea glass, blue-green, just bright eyes. And I knew that from the beginning. So I was like, okay, so her name can just be Jade. Cool. I don't know where Saunders came from. And Spencer, I always liked the name Spencer, and I always associated it with, the kind of man that he is, just the business-minded, straight man on the outside, but deep down kind of a bit of a softie, kind of romantic, can be goofy if he wants to be, but, so Spencer's always been a very attractive name. And Alexander just sounded good. That's about the best I can give you for that. Question 3 is kind of early, but someone was asking, when can we expect book 2? The Alexander Proposal came out in October. It came out October 13th of last year, and book 2 is in the works. That's a fun question, though, because I'm actually just today got permission to have an extension for my deadline, because I'm having issues with the second one. And I think there's another question later where I'll get to that. So yeah, I'll get to that later. Even though it's been delayed, I would really like it to come out before the end of the year. I'd like each book to be a year behind each other. So I'm hoping October, November of this year, book 2 will be out, and then book 3 will be out in 2022 around the same time. And I have a note here. There will be another book released. It's coming out towards the end of the year. It's not the second book. It's a completely different book because there's a whole story behind it. But I will have another book coming out. I'll be making an announcement on that soon. And it's a standalone. It has absolutely nothing to do with unexpected mergers at all. And people are getting confused about that. But it's not book 2. The next question is, what is your process of writing a book and how long does it take? So for the first draft, it doesn't take me long to write because I fast draft. But with the rest of my process, once the 0 draft is done, it could take about a year to complete a book, which sounds a little ridiculous. But I have multiple rounds of my own editing and sending it off to beta readers so that way they can read it. And I like it to be as polished as possible. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so I like it to be as most to my liking as it can be before I even send it off. I don't want my editor to have to do too much work, if that makes sense. But since I'm getting back into YouTube, I am planning on doing a whole video that documents my process, and I'm actually pretty excited about that. The next question is, what is the best writing tool you own, and what is your favorite? And this is a fun question, just because it's not something I get asked very often. But my best writing tool, I'm going to have to say my laptop, just because I use it for everything. I don't really use the cloud. I know a lot of people save their stuff onto the cloud. I don't. Everything gets saved onto two hard drives and a flash drive, so that way everything's backed up. So that's my best writing tool, which is very generic. But my favorite writing tool is technically not a writing tool, but I turn it into a writing tool, and it is my Happy Planner. I don't know if you guys use bullet journals or disc-bound journals. I was very against them at first, but I'm going to plug them right here because I got this in August of last year. And I've had it for a little while, and I use it every single day, no matter what I'm doing. And it has everything I need to work on a book. It has my beat sheets, it has my story structure sheets, my schedules, everything. So that is my favorite writing tool. Next question is, what inspired the series? Kind of blowing through these questions. So this is a fun one though, because I talked about this, I remember talking about it when I unboxed my copies of The Alexander Proposal. I'm not used to talking this much. So it's very funny. I have always secretly loved billionaire romances. It's not something I advertise. My branding is very much historical, the bodice rippers, but there's always been a special place in my heart for billionaire romance, and I think everyone has something like that. And my husband and I used to travel a lot for his job, and that was when I started looking into writing as a career. And I remember being in Texas for the very first time in my life and seeing Dallas and seeing those roads that are just stacked on top of each other, and it was absolutely terrifying. And the one thing that really amazed me was these giant wind turbines, the ones that are like skyscrapers, and they're just all along the edges of the roads. They're everywhere where we were in Texas. And I was just like, wow, those things are really cool. And so I had the idea for this story about a girl who works for a company that makes those. And it just progressed, and it mostly started as a joke because I was sitting there thinking about it, and I was like, okay, but what if it's an arranged marriage? What if there's a contract? Like, just thinking of just tropes that I knew. And then it actually started coming together, which was really unexpected. And I remember writing that first page of ideas, and even then it was called The Alexander Proposal. So that's where the story came from. It literally came from seeing wind turbines on the side of the road in Texas. You find those story ideas in the weirdest places you never imagine. And while I'm on this subject, that inspired the first book. The series did not have very little inspiration. So I sent in The Alexander Proposal the week after The Devil's Maverick was released. So I sent it in February of last year. And I was really nervous because I was like, this is not my genre. This might be really bad, and I just don't know it. And I was expecting a full-on rejection. Cut to end of the month, and I hear back, and my editor not only loved it, but was like, okay, you had all these other really cool characters in here. What do you think about making a series? And I wanted to say no immediately because I don't really do series. I don't read series that much. And I didn't think I could because it was planned to be a standalone. And the people she was talking about just had these cute little throwaway flirtations that were just meant to be just that, just throwaways. But she was interested, and I was like, all right, cool. Let's see what we can come up with, and maybe. So I sat down and I thought about it, and she made some suggestions. And I ended up writing 2 outlines for 2 new books that I had never intended to write. And that actually happened towards the end of March. I remember because we were in quarantine, and where I live, there were a bunch of really bad storms at that time. And we were living in an RV. So I remember we ended up going to my husband's parents' house during the storms. I remember sitting there just typing out these ideas and getting more ideas and getting really excited because I was like, I have a series now. And sending those emails with the synopsis and the blurbs, and it was just really surreal looking back on it. And it was never meant to be a series. It is now, but when I wrote it, I was intending it to just be the one book and I was done. It was very long-winded and I apologize. We'll go to the next question. Did you learn anything new while writing the Alexander proposal? As I already mentioned, there's a lot of research into lifestyles, how businesses run, boating laws. I think that was the one that really stuck with me. Was I now know I could technically go boating in Manhattan if I wanted to. Like, I know the exact distance to be in order to drop anchor from the marina, which is an odd piece of information for someone from Georgia to have. I did learn how radically different the lifestyles are. From someone who lives a very average life with a very average income in a very average town, to do research and see where billionaires live, these amazing penthouses that are bigger than where I work, and people live there, and there's like art worth millions on the walls, and you've got this balcony with a pool outside, and then you have a sauna in this room, and it's so excessive, and it doesn't really compute in my brain. But it was really interesting to learn about and to get into that mindset. And I think for a while, even Jade is kind of like, wow, this is really weird, because her parents were kind of down to earth. And even though they were billionaires, they never really showed it, I guess. They valued the simpler things. But the Alexanders didn't care. They just had this amazing penthouse with large panes of glass, and yes, they do have a pool out on the balcony that I wanted to use but never did, and like 3 different sitting rooms and a gourmet kitchen. And I made it a little excessive, but that's because that's how the lifestyle is, and that was really cool to get to learn about and see. And I guess the biggest thing I learned, which was a surprise and which I never expected, was that I really enjoyed writing contemporary romance, not just billionaire romance, but contemporary. I thought this would just be an experiment where I'd try to write something in modern day, and it ended up where I learned that contemporary is kind of easier to write, because you don't have complications. Things are a little more convenient, I guess. But it's now not the only contemporary book I've written. And even outside of the Unexpected Merger series, I've been working on other stuff set in the modern day, and I didn't think I would do that. But it was really interesting to learn that was something I could do, and something I really, really did enjoy doing. That made sense in my head. I don't know if that made sense how I said it. But we will be moving on. Long story short, expect more contemporary romance in the future, because it is a lot of fun to write. Historical is still my favorite. All right. The next question is, were any characters inspired by real people? Jade was not. Jade was just, in my head, just this honestly, at the time, she was someone I wanted to be. She was beautiful. She was getting ready to take over a business. She was confident. She knew what she wanted, and didn't have to rely on anyone. And at the time, as I said, we were traveling for work, and I was trying to figure out what I'm doing with my life, and I felt very dependent at the time. And so I made her just who I guess I wanted to be at the time, but she was not based look-wise on anyone. Spencer was. Spencer Alexander is look-wise and kind of attitude-wise is based off of the actor Lee Pace, which I will happily share with anyone who asks. He's one of my all-time favorite actors. I'll watch anything he's in. I love him. And he is a bit of a dreamboat, so he seemed like the perfect model for Spencer in my head. And even though the guy on the cover does not look like Lee Pace, now that I've seen that and seen how well it fits, the guy on the cover is definitely Spencer. So he didn't start that way, but he is now, because I can't imagine anyone else anymore. Next question is really interesting. Do we get the ever after for Jade and Spencer? If you've read the book, you know that there is an epilogue that takes place after the wedding, where they're back on the yacht and they're headed towards their honeymoon. And Spencer makes a hint about where they are going. Sorry, that was a spoiler. And then you just kind of get them sailing off into the sunset. And I do know what happens after. Of course I do. And I am planning on releasing shorts pretty soon. I say pretty soon. I don't know when it'll happen. But I have written another little epilogue of the honeymoon that I want to see how to get out there. And of course, all three books are connected. So you will, if you read the series, even without reading the shorts, you will see Jade and Spencer again. I actually, working on the second book, just had a scene where Jade was talking to someone. And it is pretty cool as a writer to revisit your characters, and their story's done, but they're still there. And so I get to see them again. It's like seeing a friend again. Whenever Spencer shows up in one of the books, I actually fangirl a little bit, because I was like, oh, I forgot I had him coming in here. And it was like seeing him again. That probably sounded really weird. But yeah, you do get more Jade and Spencer, at least as far as the books go. And like I said, I really want to get those shorts out because I really like them. I think they're a good couple. I think they're very adorable, and I really want to do more with them. So the next question is not exactly about Alexander Proposal. It is, why do you write under a pen name? That's kind of boring. My answer will be boring because I don't have anything behind it. Mostly it's because my real life last name is not very common, and it's long and it's hard to write out. Of course, I'm married now, so my name's a little easier, but I like having it separate. I like having this alter ego who writes romance novels. It makes me feel like I have a secret identity, I guess. It's childish, really. The origins are pretty interesting, though. So Fair, I thought was really cool. I don't know where it came from. But I really like it. I like the spelling. I like writing it. Lori, though, Lori has meaning to me. One of my favorite books is surprisingly not a romance. It's a Western called Lonesome Dove, and it's such a good book. And one of the characters in its name is Lorena. And while she's not my favorite character, Sorry, my watch was falling off. My favorite character is Augustus McCrae, who is, I consider him the main character, and he and Lorena kind of have a relationship where she's in love with him and he likes her, but he mostly kind of looks out for her. There's some romantic chemistry, but one of my favorite things is the way he always called her Lori Darling. And I always thought that was just so sweet, just so romantic. If you've read the book, you're probably thinking, that's dumb, that's not romantic, because you know, but in my mind it was. So I always thought the name Lori would be good if I ever decide to write, and here we are. So I'm really not used to talking this much, and I know I get excited about things and I talk too much. These are all so long-winded. All right, so the next question. Is there a scene or phrase that you're most proud of? I need to think about that. Because some of these I did not write any notes on. I cannot think of a single line. I honestly cannot think of a single line from my book. Because I don't think I had one that really stuck with me in this one. But there were whole scenes and whole pieces of dialogue that I really did enjoy. Scene-wise, I really liked the engagement party. One of my favorite things to do in my books is plan outfits. I love fashion. I love, researching fashion design and different styles. And I had Jade dress very conservatively. She's very business-minded. She doesn't dress up, except for on the rare occasion. And I really enjoyed the engagement party chapter because I got her it's a masquerade ball, and she gets this amazing gown, and it's, I think it took place in the Edison Ballroom, which is a real place in New York that I took a virtual tour of. And bringing that place to life in the book was really a lot of fun. But it is beaten by the yacht chapter, where I like to joke of it as the beach episode of an anime, because it's just this random chapter where they just go on a yacht into the water and they swim and they frolic, and it's a lot of fun. I like boats, I like water, and I really enjoyed taking them out of that city life and isolating them on a boat where they kind of have to have fun because there's nothing else to do. And a fun piece of trivia about the boat is called the Absolution. And I have actually had someone ask me why I named it that. It is because my favorite movie is Titanic, and my favorite song from the soundtrack is Never an Absolution. So when I was coming up with a name for a yacht, I was like, okay, boats, Titanic, Absolution. Those were the mental gymnastics I had to do to name this yacht. Let's see. The next question is, was there anything cut before publication? Before publication, no, not really that I can remember. Before submission, yes. You would not really be able to recognize the zero draft of this book. And a big part of it was because in the first version, Spencer and Jade did not know each other. They were strangers in an arranged marriage. And so I cut a lot of dates. Like, I had them going on a bunch of dates. And that was the problem, was it was getting too bogged down with them trying to get to know each other. They hadn't been friends, so how were they expected to get married? It was that mindset. And I finished it, and I was like, okay, so what if they did know each other? Went back and rewrote the whole thing. And I think it works a little bit better now. I kept most of the stuff the same, just had them know each other, had them have a connection, had them already have a history. Because if you've read it, you know they actually do have a history. And my throat is going to be so sore when I'm done with this. They kind of grew up together, so it wasn't them so much having to get to know each other, it was having to learn how the other had changed, because deep down they were still the same person, if that makes sense. So mostly a lot of dates, nothing I would ever release, because I'm really glad it's all gone. I'm glad that those really awkward dialogue riddled dates do not exist anymore, except in the graveyard on my computer. Our next question is, do you find pieces of yourself or your personality in your characters, or vice versa? Usually, and I think any writer does that, because you have to write what you know. So it's kind of, I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. It is a mix of how would I react in that situation and how should my character react in that situation. Where if Jade is, example, where Jade is eating lunch and Stacy shows up out of the blue, had followed her there. The first time I wrote that, Jade was very timid, very reserved, very scared, not scared, intimidated. And that wasn't who I wanted her to be, but that was how I would have been in that situation. You know, if this woman who I knew was dangerous, who I knew was possibly moving in on my man, I would be intimidated. I would just kind of sit there and kind of close up, because I'm an anxious person and I don't do well with confrontation. So the first time I wrote her, that's how she was. And if you've read it, you know she stands up for herself, even though it does make her anxious. She does stand up for herself. It's like, this is really isn't your business. It's really nothing to do with you. Take it up with Spencer. At least that's how I remember writing it. And that was her, not me. But the anxiousness afterwards was me, because I'm like, okay, there's no way she got through that with a straight face, and it's perfectly fine now, even though that's completely possible. And another thing is the vice versa, where you become like your character. So that's an interesting question, because I've recently started looking into therapy writing and using your story to deal with your own problems that you deal with personally. So basically, it's where you take something like, another example here, I am scared of the dark. I have a huge phobia of being without light, of being in a dark room. I still sleep with a nightlight. I'm not ashamed of that. So I'm trying to get better about it, and I'm using a story to write a character who's also afraid of the dark, and write her so that she isn't anymore, so that she overcomes that fear. And there's this theory that will help you overcome your fear. And it's still something I'm playing around with, but I do think a little bit of every writer's characters rub off on them in some way. I think it's very difficult to get into the headspace of the character and not have it change you, at least temporarily. Because you have to teach yourself to think as that character. So, of course, even when you're not writing, your brain might still process it that way. And, this is the last one on my list, and then I can look at some other ones. So the last one is, how did writing a billionaire romance differ from writing The Devil's Maverick? And I touched on that earlier, but specifically, it was different because, one, technology. They had cell phones in the Alexander proposal, and I actually remember having to remind myself of that. because I remember having Jade sit down and write a letter to her friend. And about halfway through the chapter, I stopped and I was like, wait, this isn't 1790. She can just email her friend or text her friend. And I just kind of had a good laugh at myself on that one. But I will tell you the biggest one. The biggest difference is the relationship dynamics. And this is going to be me not really bad-mouthing the Devil's Maverick, but noting differences. With the Alexander proposal, Jade and Spencer had to earn each other's trust and were respected as equals by everyone around them. So it was a little easier because, Jade was also a CEO in training. She was also the CEO-elect of Saunders, and even though Saunders was getting merged with Alexander International, they still held the same position. They still had a very similar income. They were very much each other's equals. Whereas in The Devil's Maverick, Elijah is this pirate who kind of has established a name for himself. He has a reputation. He already has the respect and fear of his colleagues. Whereas Elva is very misunderstood. I will say she is almost Elijah's equal. I wouldn't say that. Sorry. But she can handle herself. But because she is a woman in those times, she's constantly being underestimated and has to prove herself over and over again, even to Elijah at times. And also, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. If The Devil's Maverick was set in modern day, it would not play out the same way. Because now you can't just kidnap people like that, even if you are a pirate. Even if you are an attractive pirate, it is not okay to straight up keep someone in that way. But that's why we do romance. That's why this genre is so open, because you're allowed to do whatever you want. And it's escapism, so I'm not going to go too far into that. But there you go. That was my main difference in the writing, is because the relationships were 100% different. They still fell in love at the end, but getting there was a whole nother animal. And those are all the questions that I received through social media and through messages. So I guess we can see if there's any for here. Just be awkward here. Wow. Oh my god, guys, I didn't see any of these comments. My camera's in the way. Thanks, everyone. Okay, so here's Nally saying you're doing great. Thank you. I feel like I blabbered on way too much, but I guess that's the point of this, right? All right. Did any of the characters' name change as you wrote the story? Like, were all the names set from the beginning, or did any of them change during editing? None changed during edit. Well, actually, there is a story there. Jade, Spencer, Bryce, Paige, Clint, Kendall, Victoria, Carlton, Timothy, and I can't remember her mother's name. I remember those names because they were all set from the beginning. Every single one. Stacy is not. Stacy is a very new name that was added literally the day, I think it was the day before I sent it in. Or it might have been the day before I did my last round of edits personally. So originally, her name was Juliana. Beautiful name. I really hated to waste it on such a mean character. I really did. And I was like, I don't know if I'm okay with having this name, because I really want to use this for, a future book with one of my main characters. So I need something else. So we decided Stacy. And when I say we, I mean me and one of my beta readers decided on the name Stacy from an inside, I think it was a Cards Against Humanity joke. That is basically that bitch Stacy. So that's why her name is Stacy. It is an inside joke in our group that, nobody likes Stacy. So of course the bad guy's going to be Stacy. Nothing too interesting there. Like I misled you before, but to me that's always really funny to read it and just be like, that bitch Stacy. And also, oh wait, no, that name stayed the same. Never mind. Next question is, curious about book 2. See, I don't want to give too much away about book 2. I need to think about it for a second. I don't want to divulge too much, especially since I'm in the middle of a rewrite and I still don't know exactly where it's going to go. Okay, I'll give you a little sneak preview. I think I'm allowed to talk about it. Hopefully I'm allowed to talk about it. So this book will follow all 3 books follow characters you've already met. And the second one is going to be a romance with the event coordinator, Kendall Armstead. And I think that's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. I will say it's not going to be the same as the Alexander proposal. Even though I'm going to be using characters from the Alexander proposal, it's going to be vastly different, and I don't think it's anything anyone will see coming. So, yeah, that's all I'm going to divulge today as far as that goes. I can't read that. Let's see if I can. I like nips. Good for you, man. Next question is, I like the accent. Thank you. I'm from South Georgia, and I'm very honored that Spike Spiegel likes the way I talk. That's pretty cool. Do you like Fabio? Not really, but you couldn't tell based on the books behind me, could you? I like to have my collection behind me. I like anything romantic. Lori Darling is too cute. What a great pen name. Thank you. It is, I will tell you, if you haven't read Lonesome Dove, Lori is a prostitute. Lorena is the only one in Lonesome Dove, and Lonesome Dove is the name of the town. And throughout the book, she actually ends up going with Gus across the country. And that's why I don't think many people will find her name, or the fact that he calls her Lori Darling, is romantic, because she is paid. But I don't know. I always had a thing for it because even though she's in that line of work, she does genuinely fall in love with Gus. And so I know from having people I care about give me nicknames, I know that to her, that meant a lot to have him call her her own nickname. And I just like the way Robert Duvall says it in the movie. So, yeah, it's pretty great. And it looks like those are all the questions. But I will wait just a minute and see if there are any more. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can talk about. I might plug the fact that there will be things in the future. Like I said, I'm working on getting my YouTube channel back up. I'm working on I think another question came through. I lost my train of thought. Big things in the future. I'm planning on completely rebranding everything because, like I said, I'm not just doing historical anymore. I've decided to branch out. So I'm going for a complete rebrand of Lori. I'm going for more YouTube videos, new social media accounts, just new ways of interacting, because my favorite thing about writing so far, other than the writing itself, is getting to talk to people about it. I love the writing community, not just the reading community, but I do love them too. But finding the writing community has really changed my life, and I want to be a lot more involved. So let us see. Do you ever see yourself leaving the romance genre and branching out to others? That was another thing I wanted to talk about. If you know me in real life, you know I am a big horror fan. I love scary movies, I love scary books. And I've just recently been introduced to horror romance. And I'm looking into that, but I'm also looking into horror short stories, which is something I never thought I would be saying. But I've written 3 so far, all of them around 5,000 words, so they're not very long. But I really like it. The only thing is I have to be in the mood for it. But I would like to do more, just straight horror, and maybe do like a compilation of short stories. Horror romance is definitely something I can get into, though. So it's not really going far outside. I have a friend who writes thrillers, and that always seemed interesting, but I don't think I could pull that off. So right now I'm sticking to romance, but I'm curious about writing horror. And out of your books, which cover is your favorite? I only have the 2 right now, but I'm about to commit blasphemy and say that The Alexander Proposal is my favorite cover. Which is horrible because I'm a sucker for a cover with a girl in a poofy dress. But The Alexander Proposal is my favorite, and not just because, the guy on the front is handsome. I'm actually pulling up real quick to show you the reason I like it so much. Just a second. So The Alexander Proposal is beautiful. The cover is great with the city skyline and with Spencer. The best part is it was the first cover I had animated. And let's see if I can get my camera to focus there. Basically, it's the same cover. It's just the light is going there, and it's got like this layer of like steam or fog on it, and then the rain dripping, which I thought was great because at the beginning of the book, when Jade first arrives in New York, it's raining for like the first few days she's there. And that animated cover just looks so, so good. And it might change whenever I get my next book's cover, but as of right now, The Alexander Proposal is my favorite. And it's been about 7 minutes. I should start planning activities to do during this. My voice is going to sound completely different tomorrow. Just from the sheer amount of talking I've been doing. And I'll just give it another second in case more questions come in. If not, we will call it early, which I'm okay with. One thing I can talk about is I almost thought about doing books under a different pen name. Had the name picked out and everything, and wanted to do a different style, not a different genre, just a different style of writing. And I don't know, I've been debating on whether or not to use that or just keep using Lori, because I really like Lori, and if I'm being honest, I don't think I have the mental fortitude to build up another author platform. Let's see. Who is your favorite romance author, and do you have a favorite author outside of romance? Favorite romance author, I think, I read a lot. Let me think about that for just a second. I'm going to have to go with a very obvious Julia Quinn. I've read her whole Bridgerton series. Of course, it's amazing. My favorite book by her is The Sum of All Kisses, which has to do with the Smythe Smith family. And that's my favorite. But as a writer, I really appreciate her because, yes, she has she has the romance, she has the steamy scenes, but she also has so much wit. She's so clever. And I can remember reading like a page of just banter between these family members and going back and rereading again because I loved it so much. She fits a lot of personality onto the page, and I really admire that. And I wish I could do it. I wish I could be so clever with my writing. Outside of romance, I would have to say Dan Brown. Anything by him, I blow through his books. And that's so weird because they're all thrillers and they're all mysteries, but I have yet to read a Dan Brown book that's not impacted me personally, because I'll read them very quickly. And with 3 of them, I cried at the ending. And I don't think I was supposed to. It was Angels and Demons, The Lost Symbol, and Origin. I cried at the endings. And I really don't think I was supposed to, but I did. And it's a big deal for an author to impact in that way, to make you feel those emotions. And I also really like his short chapters because those are way easier for me to read. So yeah, thank you everyone for being here. It really does mean the world to me that I can do this sort of thing and interact with people and get to talk to people and share all these things about my stories. It just means a lot that people care, I guess, that people care about, what I have to say. I don't know why you guys do that. But I love talking about it with people, and, maybe I'm a little bit conceited, but I like talking about my own books. I like sharing more of the story with people, and I really do appreciate each and every one of you for being here today and for listening to me ramble. And if you're watching this in the future, I appreciate you for taking the time to be here. I appreciate all of you for that. And I don't really know what else to say. There's been a lot of support on this journey from a lot of people. And I'm not always the best at expressing my gratitude for that sort of thing. Especially over the internet. I do much better in person. And I want to genuinely thank everyone, whether you've been there from day one or you just arrived on the scene. Having that support system, having people care about these stories, having people be there for me is a sort of new experience, and it really is overwhelmingly amazing. Amazing does not feel like the right word. My point is, thank you everyone for being here today. Thank you for asking your questions and giving me your time to listen to me. That didn't sound normal. thank you, each and every one of you. And I will see you all in the future with a lot of really great stuff, I hope. Let's see. I'll get this YouTube thing figured out. Thank you all again, and I will see you next time.